Hey everybody, it's Julie, and in the October newsletter, I'm going to be sharing some embossing folder techniques. And some of you have been using embossing folders for a really long time, and others of you may have seen them but really not known what they were for. Like my mom, I can't wait to share this with her. She's going to think it's pretty cool. And it used to be back in the Stone Age, yeah, I remember. We used to have to use a light table, a ball tip stylus, and a brass stencil to transfer raised or debossed patterns to our paper surfaces. Well, now you can use these really cool textured embossing folders that are made of a really nice durable plastic and send them through your Big Shot or personal die cutting machine and get the same effect, and it happens in just seconds. It's so quick and so easy. And I'm using the Big Shot Plus. It just came to live at my house, and I love this machine. I have the Big Shot. When the original Big Shot came out, I got it, and I've loved it ever since. But when the Big Shot Plus came out at CHA, I went kind of nuts, and I just had to have it. So basically what you're going to do is take your paper and sandwich it inside one of these embossing folders. And here you can see the Big Shot Plus platform. It's really huge. It's kind of intimidating, but I love it. I love the 9-inch feet on this machine. Now the original platform on the Big Shot came with tabs, and these are just basically shims that were hinged to the platform, and you'd have to open them up depending on how much pressure or thickness or shims that you needed to get the job done. Well, on the new designed machines now, the adapters are they're not tabs anymore. They're called adapters, and they're not hinged to the platform anymore. So you can leave them on or take them off or layer them together, whatever you need to get the job done. And the instructions for, depending on if you're die cutting or if you're embossing or using an embossing folder, those are all printed on the platform and the two adapter sheets. So for this next level, We Are Memory Keepers embossing folder, I found I had to take both the adapter sheets off completely and just use the two cutting pads and my paper sandwiched inside the folder. And when I cranked it through, out came this very cool embossed paper. It just took like 2 seconds. And then I'm just going to use my scissors here to trim along the lines here on this folder to create an iceberg effect. Even though it's a gemstone embossing folder, I think it's cool when you can come up with a dual purpose for a tool like this. Now on the Waves folder, this is a really deeply embossed, this is another next level embossing folder. I thought it would be fun to use Distress ink and ink up one side of the embossing folder with ink, and then take my watercolor paper and sandwich that inside and send that through the Big Shot. And what this is going to do is it's going to transfer the ink and deboss or emboss this pattern into the watercolor paper all at the same time. So now I've got it sandwiched in there. I'm going to send it through the Big Shot using the same sandwich I did on the previous next level embossing folder, which is, extra thick and chunky. And here you can see the ink transferred. It's really cool to see it all on the pattern that, is part of the embossing folder. And then to make it just a little bit more watery looking, because I was trying to create kind of an ocean backdrop for my little goldfish, my aquarium fish. So I'm just going to take a wet paintbrush and just blend out that distressed color a little bit, but I still have the shading and I have all that dimension because of that embossing folder. So that's just another cool way to use your embossing folder. And I think it's fun as a backdrop from a little aquarium fish. And then for this technique, this is called wax paper resist. I'm going to run a piece of ordinary household wax paper through a tightly patterned embossing folder. And when I come back, you can see the pattern has been transferred to the wax paper. And like I said, it's just kitchen wax paper. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use an iron to transfer that pattern to 2 separate pieces of Bristol paper. And I'm just sandwiching that wax paper in between the 2 pieces of Bristol, and then I'm just going to use that typing paper or copy paper there to protect my iron, so that the wax paper, when it melts, it just melts onto the Bristol and doesn't melt onto my iron. So I used a very hot iron with no steam at all, and about 7 to 8 seconds of ironing over the top of that a piece of typing paper that had everything sandwiched inside it. So now you can see as I'm blending the water-based ink over the top, the pattern starts to reveal itself. At first you can't even see it because it's just kind of embedded into the paper from the wax, all transferred like that. And then when you start blending it, the magic happens. So this was just one I just grabbed to see it happen. And I thought it was really fun to watch it just kind of magically appear. And then I decided it would be really fun to take the other piece, since I actually was able to do 2 at one time, by sandwiching it like that, to just do a partial inking to get kind of a textured backdrop that was kind of artsy and abstract for my focal image. So I'm using some more Distress ink in a really nice soft pink color. I think this is Tattered Rose, and just blending it partially. I'm not going to cover the whole thing. I could, but to get the effect that I wanted, I just needed part of it. And then you don't even see the rest. It just kind of fades off and disappears into the rest. And here you can see the cool backdrop that it made for my focal image there. And on this one, I wanted to try double embossing. So I'm going to use another embossing folder, but this time I'm going to use a die. This is a low profile die that does not have an aperture to it. It's a solid backing. So this is really only going to work with your solid backed dies. And I'm using a glue dot, and I'm just going to determine where I want it to show up. You know, there's my paper that I'm going to be working with. That's actually letterpress paper, because I love doing this technique on letterpress paper. I just think it looks so luxurious, and it's kind of like fake or faux letterpressing. So I'm going to go ahead and get my die in place, and you'll notice that I have the flat backside against the pattern on the embossing folder. And I'm not going to close my embossing folder. I'm just going to leave it open, and I only closed it to just kind of get it in place, and then I made sure I didn't press hard because I don't want the blades to cut or ruin the pattern of my embossing folder. So now I'm going to use some washi tape that I neutralized against my hand and keep that letterpress paper in place over the top of the die and everything. And then on my platform, I found I got the best results with the 110-pound letterpress paper by putting both adapter pads on top of my platform, then the silicone rubber sheet, which is going to give a nice cushy surface, and then I'm going to put that one cutting pad on top. So I'm only using one cutting pad on top. And then I've got the embossing folder, the die, the letterpress paper, the silicone, and then the two adapters and the platform. So you can see that it transferred the design, both designs at the same time, to the letterpress paper. And the trick is to make sure you do not close your embossing folder or you'll ruin it. So ask me how I know. No, actually I never did do that, but I came close. So here you can see how cool it looks to have both of those patterns. And here you can see a much better detail shot that shows the embossing and how the die didn't cut through the letterpress paper. There are more still shots and detailed information at the In Touch newsletter blog, so be sure to visit and check that all out. All the supplies are available at ellenhutson.com, and thanks for watching.